please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Halftime Report. 12 noon, halfway through the trading session, and there was that big bang recovery which took place early in the morning, nearly about 150 points on the Nifty. But that has been partly sold into. So as you can see on your screen, from the top of the day, the Nifty's lost roughly about 50 odd points, and now just below that 11,000 mark. And the pressure and the pain in the NBFC pack continues. So Diwan Housing is down another 20%. In fact, in the last 3 days, Diwan Housing is pretty much halved. Prior to the carnage, Diwan Housing was hovering around levels of 610 thereabout or 620 thereabout. Now it's pretty much halved there. Indiabulls Housing Finance as well in the Nifty pack is down close to about 7%. So no respite on these stocks. Highlight.
Well, Rima, you know, some of those stocks in the mid-cap space, the way they have fallen. Jet Airways at the start of this year, people are talking about it being attractive at 750 at around 800 rupees. Crude oil prices spiked up. You had the rupee as well depreciating. Intense, competition in that space. The stock is only 200 rupees. Interglobe Aviation, that one listed. Everyone was so buoyant about it. If you want exposure to the aviation space, then it has to be Interglobe. That's moving towards 800 rupees odd. And the breadth of the market really is telling you, though we have the Nifty that's trading with a gain of around 20 points, things will be very, very volatile because in the next two trading sessions, we'll have expiry that will play out. The mid-cap index, the breadth of the market really tells you the picture. 1,200 stocks that are declining, 800 stocks that are advancing. Clearly, some big cuts in the broader markets as well. Stocks moving around from the broader markets. So first up, getting straight to our movers and shakers segment. Rima, tell us the news on Infosys.
Well, there has been a pickup in deal wins for Infosys. So if you just map the deal wins that have taken place in the last few weeks for the company, today the company announced a $62 million deal win by Canada's Public Services Procurement Policy. So $62 million there. There are reports which suggest that Infosys has won a deal worth $700 million from Verizon. Again, reports also suggest that the deal was signed last week. The employees will transition from 1st of October. Another report suggested that they won a $300 million deal from Microsoft. Early in September, the company had announced they had entered into a JV with Temasek, where Infosys will hold about a 60% stake in the JV, which will help Infosys expand its presence in Southeast Asia. So basically, there has been an improvement in the deal momentum and Infosys. And if these reports are to be believed, Q2 could be the second consecutive quarter where the company has seen deal wins in excess of $1 billion, which will be a positive. And it reinforces confidence back in the CEO, Salil Parekh, at a time when, the CFO, Mr. Ranganathan, had resigned. So there was a lot of issues and, fears about management churn and whether that will impact business. But at least the deal wins, going by the reports, appear to be quite robust.
Okay, all right, Rima. Thanks so much for that. Well, Mahindra stock, that's recovered in trade. The stock is now up close around 4%. We spoke to Mr. Ramesh Iyer, the MD of the company, earlier today. He says that the company is seeing a different story on the asset quality front in FY19. Let's listen in.
If you're working in a segment which is highly competitive, where you're not able to pass on your cost to the consumer, there will be pressure on margin, which is why, both on the asset and liability side, having a very good product mix is extremely important. Normally, the first and second quarter shows up increasing, NPS, and then they correct in the last two quarters. But this year has been a very different story, and I've said this before. At the end of first quarter, we saw collection efficiency improve. We saw gross NPA come down. The average cost of fund for us still remains at about 8.3, 8.4. Since we had, always a well-matched fund that we've taken, and therefore any new borrowing comes with a new rate, of course, and that comes at about 8.7, 8.8, but the average is still at about 8.3, 8.4. We are at least very clear that we must have the margin orientation very high and do only as much business that we believe can be done through the cost risk that can be passed on to the consumer. I mean, as a finance company, I don't think we're here to absorb all of that.
Okay, and to give you a roundup of some more stocks which are making news today, Sonal joins in. Sonal?
Thanks a lot for that, Rima. And yes, I'll start with Mangalam Drugs and Organics. That stock is logged in upper circuit today because the company has received a WHO approval for one of the drugs that is used to treat HIV. So that is positive for the company. Other stock that is in focus is Dilip Buildcon because the company has been declared as an L1 for a new EPC project, and the order amounts to around 600 crore rupees, is awarded by Water Resource Department in Kota, and it has to be completed in a period of around 48 months. So that stock is buzzing in trade as well. So Wain Life Sciences has secured a product patent in Canada and Sri Lanka, and that is why that stock is buzzing in trade today. Now, some brokerage action as well, which is impacting the stocks. Macquarie has written on Nalco. They've upgraded the alumina prices by 25 to 37% for FY 19-20. Also, they have upgraded the target price to 87 from 82 rupees, and they maintain their outperform call. Axis Cap has written on airline companies. They have been under pressure because of the rising crude prices. Also, DGCA came up with the aviation data yesterday, which was at around 17%. So Axis Cap says that return to that lower growth by 20% on a YY basis remains a concern, and that is something that will put pressure on the stocks. Also, low growth and weak fare outlook may keep margins under check. That is why these stocks are under focus today. Jefferies has written on engineering and construction companies. They have upgraded Blue Star to a buy, and target price is at 800 rupees per share, and target price for Voltas is at around 750 rupees per share. Real estate stocks are also in focus. They have been on the downside in last few days. CLSA has written on them. They say that the property stocks are down on high interest rates, accounting changes, and also because of the liquidity issues with the lenders. However, they think they are positive with Godrej Properties and also are positive on Prestige Estates and Oberoi Realty. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Sonal, thanks so much for that. Well, the hunt for the new CEO will be top focus at Yes Bank's board meet today. This after the RBI curtailed the tenure of Yes Bank's current MD and CEO, Mr. Rana Kapoor, to the 31st of January 2019. Ritu Singh is here with us with all those details. Ritu, who are the possible candidates and what will Mr. Rana Kapoor's role be post the 31st of January?
Two key items will be on top of the agenda of the board members of Yes Bank as they are set to meet to decide the future course of action. One is the appointment of a new MD and CEO as Rana Kapoor steps down by the end of January next year. Here we understand that a search committee will be appointed and they will look at both internal and external candidates. Rajat Mongawa and Pralay Mondal are among the strongest contenders internally. Externally, of course, also the search committee could look for more candidates to bring in more credibility to the bank. But that aside, the final stamp of approval lies with the Reserve Bank of India when it comes to the selection of the CEO. The bank can merely make recommendations. The second and the more complicated matter is that of Rana Kapoor's future role in the bank. Currently, by virtue of being the MD and CEO of the company, he is also a whole-time director. But the legal opinion is that by giving up that position, he also gives up his position on the board of the bank. But do remember, the articles of association of Yes Bank do say that Rana Kapoor, by virtue of being an Indian partner, is not liable to retire by rotation. But there is a conflicting view in the Banking Regulation Act which says, if a whole-time member relinquishes his position, he's also not liable to be a director on the board of the bank. So, which way, the board opinion swings or what Rana Kapoor is likely to do, as further recourse to this, it remains to be seen. But it is, widely expected that this could end up in the courtroom.
Okay, an important board meet, widely tracked. Lots of drama surrounding it. But let's move on. Sugar stocks are higher in trade. Manisha, it looks like there could be a subsidy for sugar exporters.
Oh, well, finally this week, yes. Remember, last week it wasn't taken on the agenda. It was deferred rather. And since then, there have been statements from the Food Ministry that it would be taken up by the Cabinet in this week. So tomorrow is the Cabinet meeting yet again. And just to take you through the numbers, we are looking at perhaps a 5 million tons of an export mandatory on which you would be the sugar mills which will be exporting will get nearly 13.75 on cane as a subsidy and a transport subsidy as well for about 2 to 3 rupees per quintal. The sugar as a commodity is not doing so great today because the mills have been under pressure to finish off or sell off 2 million tons of mandatory sugar sales that they have to do in the month of September. But with the Cabinet meeting coming tomorrow and an export subsidy being expected, you clearly have seen the sugar stocks take that into account.
Okay, all right, Manisha, thanks so much for that. Well, here's a quick recap of all the top buzzing stocks that we have. We have Infosys, Yes Bank, Mahindra & Mahindra Financial Services, Dilip Buildcon, Mangalam Drugs, Suven Life, Nalco, aviation stocks like Jet Airways, Interglobe, as well as SpiceJet, and finally, Blue Star, as well as real estate stocks like Oberoi Realty and Prestige Estates. And finally, as Manisha told us, watch out for the cabinet meet tomorrow. So all those sugar stocks as well will be in focus. Moving on then, the finance minister's day-long meet with the top PSB's chiefs as well as executives of PSU banks is currently underway. Sapna Das joins us with what's on the agenda today. Sapna, over to you.
Well, the Finance Minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley, has addressed the public sector banks, all 21 of them, in the annual performance review that is ongoing right now in Vigyan Bhavan, New Delhi. We are also given to understand that, yes, the Finance Secretary, the DA Secretary, the DPAM Secretary are also part of this meeting, and of course, the DFS Secretary, Mr. Rajiv Kumar. It's a tight agenda that has been set out by the government as far as the 21 PSBs are concerned. Starting off first, of course, with the recovery, with the recoveries angle, recovery of NPAs, a big review on that front. Apart from that, bank performance and also the kind of reforms that have been undertaken at the time of announcement of the recapitalization plan for the PSBs, basically stock taking on that front. Of course, credit growth will be the main agenda also as part of the discussion. The growth parameters that the banks are comfortable with and the kind of targets that they would like to achieve at the end of the financial year. Here, a small point on the recovery angle, that is something that the government is like really pushing forward. First quarter, a certain set of numbers have already come out. Second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter, we have to see how that story really pans out. So by the end of the financial year, the government is trying to basically showcase the fact that, from a gross NPA level of X amount or a net NPA level of X amount, at least 40 to 50 odd thousand crores of recoveries are likely by the end of the second quarter. That's what we were given to understand. Another quick point, there will also be an interaction with the Bank Board Bureau. They are very much part of this PSB annual review. Last but not the least, during the second half of the day, Ministry of Housing Affairs basically has been invited to basically discuss the housing loan growth in the priority sector lending and also the MSME lending. Of course, in the evening, all of this will be wrapped up by the address of the Union Finance Minister around 6 o'clock. We are also given to understand that there could be some presentations on new initiatives that the government, or rather the Finance Ministry, would have taken in its day-long interaction with the 21 public sector banks.
He's holding with around a 20-point gain. Broader markets very volatile, but one stock, I think Bandhan Bank should come up for you on the screen. The stock was more or less flattish. Let's move to the high point of the day. Volume's not very, very high, but keep an eye out on that one as well. Let's move on, though. Right, that's the stock that's in focus this morning. We have with us Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, the CMD of the company, who joins us on the show. Good day, Rajiv. Thanks so much for joining in. Well, your Q1 performance was rather weak. Now, for FY19, we know that your revenue target has been placed at around that 1,760 crores. That would mean a growth of around 22%. Is that possible still?
Normally, I will say H1, H2 profile has been around 40-60. I mean, last year also the Q4 was highest in terms of growth. So I have no reason to worry that Q1 would not lead to the overall target. I'm firmly optimistic about it. And normally Q4 is the highest in terms of growth.
But we saw a revenue decline in Q1. So the ask rate for you to meet your guidance in the second half of the year is really high. So if you could at least, tell us, how has Q2 been so far for you, the progress up until now?
Let me give you two important issues on this. We have targeted about 400 crores exports this year, out of which nothing has been shipped till today. But October onwards, the shipments are lined up. So you will see the entire export turnover of 400 crore getting recorded only in Q3 and Q4.
All right, so tell us about your consultancy business as well. That was pretty weak in Q1. Some color on that?
Consultancy is firmly, I will say, on around 8 to 9% growth should be there in this segment alone. And Q1 consulting should not lead to interpretation about Q3, Q4. There are more projects which are added, like the Pune Metro, the Nagpur Metro work, Mauritius Metro. There is a major infrastructure project outside India, defense project. All these revenues will start flowing in Q3, Q4.
Okay, on the margin front, you had guided and you'd said it will remain around the 22-24% mark for FY19. But again, in Q1, there was pressure, there was a margin dip on a year-on-year basis. Was that a blip, or would you look at revising your margin target lower?
If you see the last year's full year margins, we had about 34% EBITDA level margins, and at PAT level 21.5%. And I think this year's additional favorable movements are the currency movement, which will help in getting higher revenue from exports, because our exports are getting billed in dollars, and they all are lined up now onwards, whereas the purchase price is frozen in rupees. So that difference will definitely also add to the growth in current year's income. And how much this will happen would depend upon the exchange rate on the date of dispatch.
Let's take that point forward then. You talked about a bit of a tailwind coming in from the rupee for your exports. Help us quantify that. What is exports as a percentage of sale at least?
Exports should be around 22% in this year's turnover. It's about 425 crores against 1760 operating income target.
Okay, let's move on a bit, and if we just wanted a clarification in this. BEL or Bharat Electronics had told us in an earlier interaction that for the PSUs, the government might be looking at a policy of renegotiating rates or prices, which might limit their margins, cap the margins. Is that a concern for you? What's your regulated margin profile like?
No, we have not heard. Maybe this is specific to that company, and even about that, I have not seen any written, say, orders. But we are firmly on the new turnkey projects we are discussing, and there our fees is frozen at 8.5%. Turnkey projects only. Rest of the things, the fee structure is different. I don't think it's going to impact us, to clarify it in summary here.
Tell us then about your order inflow prospects. I think in the Q1, you did around 650, around 700 crores in terms of order inflow. What can the full year inflow be?
We had reported the first major export order in July, and around 28th July, we informed exchange about 567 crore rupees order. Agreement for that has been signed with Sri Lanka. Now we can declare the name of the country also. Sri Lanka, we have signed agreement this month. And 27 months is delivery period. So that order is firmly, in hand now. Then a workshop, Dalmia Nagar. Initially there was some, investment plan, but now there is a major investment of about 500 crores. That is with us. Then another rail infrastructure project came, Dharmavaram, Pendukonda, 41 kilometers turnkey project has come to us. Overall, I will say around 1400 crores net addition we have already done this year. New orders 1400 crores already done. And it would be safe to believe almost equal amount in this H2 also.
Okay, so how does your pipeline look like?
Yeah, this would be still higher than what we have done in the past, because the investments are happening in railways, railway electrification, then workshops, then metros, airports. So all this is actually giving comfortable growth in orders, as well as the focus is on execution. So there's no reason to even worry about the 22% operating turnover we have foreseen.
Okay, all right, sir. Thanks so much for joining in. All the best for the remainder of this year. Q1 wasn't that great, but you're sounding pretty optimistic for the rest of this year. So we'll keep an eye out on that. But let's move on then, and let's get straight to CNBC TV18 exclusive, actually, that was flashing for you on the screen. We learned from sources that the Enforcement Directorate has begun its probe into NSE co-location case. Utkarsh joins us on the phone line to fill us in with all those details. Utkarsh.
So, Nigel, what we are picking up at this point of time is that ED has started the probe in the NSE co-location case. Now, what ED is looking at is the alleged instances of money laundering via trade outside India in the whole co-location case. In fact, ED officials have had one round of meetings with the SEBI officials, which is the discussion on the details of it. In fact, they have gone ahead and asked the SEBI officials to send some of the documents of their own investigation in this case. Now, what ED is looking at is, if you look at the CBI FIR, the CBI FIR does mention about trades and companies which are outside, and what ED believes is that if there is any instance of money laundering through those trades, is something which they are looking at. ED has not yet registered a case. They are still looking at the initial inquiry, and they will take a call in the next 10 to 15 days whether to go ahead registering a case or not in this.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much for that, Utkarsh. Well, the Nifty is mildly holding with some gains of around 25 points. Let's do one thing. We'll slip into a short break. You come back, we'll tell you what's the trade on the Nifty, and we'll get you some trading ideas as well. Ashwini Gujral as well as Rajat Bose, they'll be with us.